boys and girls. So this is sort of a kind of a spur of the moment. Get online and talk about what happened last night with our attempt to discuss my scientism and see where it goes.
Is that like rheumatism? You have to drink some whiskey to relieve it?
Yeah, sort of. I was not pleased with the talk last night. It seemed to turn into more of a Gish Gallop and a contention over terms, and we went down all the rabbit holes that I don't like when Danny gets on the stream.
Yeah.
And we sort of got diverted, and there were a couple of things that need to kind of fix, I think. And I'm trying to get my little pad together. But anyway, so what do you think of our talk?
Well, I was often distracted by Danny's reactions to things. He was like a very frustrated referee at a soccer game or something where nobody's listening to him.
Yeah.
So I pictured him wearing a striped shirt, a whistle in his mouth, just blowing it, and throwing flags all around his room.
Yeah, well, he's kind of like the soccer mom that is screaming in the fucking bleachers and not making any fucking sense at all, on my view of Danny. Basically, if it isn't going his way or we aren't going down his rabbit holes, then he's freaking the fuck out. I
think it would have actually been beneficial had somebody like Danny, not necessarily Danny, but somebody gotten on there and listened and say, okay, so what I'm hearing you say is, and if they're wanting an argument, put together everything you're saying and then show where it needs an argument or where the argument is incomplete. Maybe it needs another premise. But getting frustrated like that, yeah, he may just be doing that to demonstrate, to all his other friends on his other talks on different channels, what a fool you are or whatever. But it could be constructive, if he used that as an opportunity to put together the argument he's looking for, or at least the lattice and framework of it, and then try to fill it in from there.
Yeah. If I'm talking, Danny's frustrated. For some reason, I think he's scared to death of me, to tell you the truth, because I'm not doing the kind of philosophy that he likes. Basically, so if I'm talking, he's going to be frustrated.
The only exposure to like continental philosophy I've ever had was from that book, Simulation or Simulacrum and Simulation or something like that. It was basically it was the book. I think it was in Neo's room when the people from that rabbit club, that Alice in Wonder club or whatever, came to his door. And but the book was kind of rambly. It was just kind of an ongoing stream of thoughts. And I was thinking, well, maybe he was seeing in y'all's discussion more of that than premise 1, premise 2, premise 3, conclusion,
Yeah.
So, but does philosophy always have to be done that way? I don't know.
Yeah, I look at these putting together syllogistic arguments for a philosophical position. Sometimes it can be done brilliantly and it can lend some clarity to the problem. Other times it becomes a Frankenstein of what you're actually trying to do, or Frankenstein version, or Frankenstein syllogism, or a Frankengism. I don't know if anybody wants to take credit for that term, but Frankengism is pretty much what I'm going to call it from now on.
Okay, well,
and when and Danny's continual thing is, ask him to put together an argument. It's like, well, no, I am putting together an argument. We're doing it rhetorically. We're doing it with examples. We're doing it from the bottom up, and that's kind of the way I like to talk about philosophy. So there were a couple things. Number one, I think probably the biggest thing was that I think Leo kind of had it right as far as justified true belief being knowledge. That's kind of one way to. Okay, if you're going to define knowledge, Okay, I have the habit of defining knowledge as a disposition in the brain, which would kind of be the same as a belief in standard epistemology. So I'm using the word knowledge because I like K. I like uppercase K. I'm sorry, because it's hard to apply justified true belief to all knowledge that we have, because I see knowledge as a continuum from what you start learning as a zygote all the way up until you're 3 years old, when you have a vast body of knowledge,
Right.
all the way through your life. And I have
And you're
trouble
trying to make decisions and alter behavior based on that knowledge. You could do A or not A, and you choose to do not A because mommy will put me in timeout.
Or yell at me, or whatever. So yeah, you were mentioning backstage about when a child starts to develop, they'll do something, and then there comes a point where the child decides not to act right away when he gets an impulse to do something, and that's where the frontal lobes start to develop, I think. Right.
That's that. Or they can sort of act deceptively because they know, let's wait till mama is in the kitchen, and then I'll try to climb that shelf.
Yeah, and that's where they understand. They start learning about theory of mind. They start learning about other minds.
Yeah,
and they learn that, like, there's a certain point, and I forget if it's 1 or 2 years. Shannon Q would know about this point in the development, but it's a point where if somebody's not looking at you, you know that they can't understand what you're doing. Okay, and that's where you understand that people have a point of view, a first person point of view, and that you can deceive them, because now we have the possibility of deception, right?
Right.
Which is kind of an interesting part of development. So all of that knowledge, that appears, between 0 and or -9 and 3 years old, -9 months and 3 years old, all of that knowledge, I find it a little hard to put in terms of justified true belief, right?
Right.
That would seem to be a Frankenjism.
Brains. I don't know. Frankenstein was not after brains, but I just needed an opportunity to say it.
Yeah, you're going to have to get a Frankenjism soundtrack or thing going, Scott. Look it up. Look up Frankenstein. I'm sure you find something.
But I'm thinking of Lurch. I'm thinking of Lurch from
right.
Adam's Family. Yeah.
So, what I'm talking about is more along the lines of an epistemological belief in your brain, which equals a disposition to act in a certain way, or mostly to act in a certain way. So it's mostly a disposition. What the fuck did I do?
You need to add an ion at the end of it.
Yeah, God, my brain is not working this morning. So but a disposition, and then from a belief, you would there would be an operation, right? You would act on it. So an operation, so an act, and then you could justify it by that act. Like, if I believed that I could put my hand through this space, and it turned out that there was a window there and I couldn't, well, then I would find that it was not a true belief, so it wouldn't be knowledge. But if I found out that, it worked, then it would become, or basically on this branch, it would become knowledge. So that's true, right? And false, it would be sort of a false belief. So this would be a JTB down here. So that's where we would call knowledge a justified true belief, I think.
Well, here's what I don't get. And you can have incorrect knowledge and it still be justified true belief, couldn't you? Like, let's say the kid looks at the window and goes, I can see things here, and therefore I can put my hand through this window because I can see things. Because normally when you can't see things between you and there's something in the way. And if there's nothing in the way, then you can put your hand through that area. Okay, so he's just justified his reason for putting his hand in through that area, not realizing that glass is solid. It just looks like it's it must be air because I can see things through that
Yeah,
space. And so he's just justified it. So is that knowledge?
well, that would be the justification part. And then I think in addition, so you have a belief, number one, and then you justify it, and then it's either true or false. So it doesn't become knowledge except on this true arm.
Okay, so is it knowledge if it can be tested? I mean, does it have to be testable to be knowledge?
Yeah, that's the other thing. The thing, if I believe I should go left or right on a fork in a road, and it doesn't make any difference, and there's no truth or falsity to that choice, then how do we arrive at that third stage of justified true belief right here?
Now, the reason why I don't know more of this is because anytime I read a book like that on philosophy, somebody's going to say a bachelor is an unmarried man, and then I'm just going to throw that book into the kitchen, even through a window if necessary.
Right. Yeah.
And then just quit, because I just get very disgusted when I hear the example, a bachelor is a married man. Don't ask me why. I'm not saying it's rational.
I always imagine myself. I always imagine myself picking up a certain Milliweenie and throwing him through the window.
I think so. Yeah, that's your visualization of it.
Every time I hear bachelor is unmarried or whatever, yeah, I just want to hoist the Milliweenie, which I lift weights, so I can lift that little fucker and throw him physically through a window. That's kind of what I want to do. So,
and really, that's really a bad definition of bachelor. You have to throw in there these days, a bachelor is a man who has never been married.
Ooh.
Because I asked somebody, I'm divorced and I'm unmarried now. Does that mean I'm
a bachelor?
A bachelor? Apparently not.
I don't know.
But anyway, I know I kind of got us sidetracked here, but the whole idea is I wish I knew more about this, but then again, I know why I don't. It's because getting through those treatises on epistemology is sometimes cumbersome.
Well, what bothers me is that they will come up with a whole, JTB definition, and then they'll start to tear it apart.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, okay, where is the author going? And I have to run to the conclusion of the book and try to figure out what the fuck does the author believe after all of his arguments.
Yeah.
Because that will define how I read his book, basically.
Yeah, that's unfortunate, but that is as far as taking in all the volumes of information these fellas and ladies can put out there. That is a way of learning, is kind of doing a quick review of the intro and the chapter and the conclusion, the chapters and the conclusion, and then kind of diving into it. Are you seeing even if it's worth it to dive into it?
Yeah. So, okay. So now back to my quirky view of scientism. Scientism, I think, is mostly a straw man against, because it's considered so evil now. If you call somebody a scientist or somebody adheres to scientism, then, they're automatically an idiot. Right. And so I don't think anybody in modern times actually adheres to scientism because of that, except for me. I grabbed the term, and because I am a fucking contrarian, I will defend it. Okay. But my scientism does not say that we're going to make moral decisions like genetic modification based on science, because there's a whole lot more that goes into moral decisions, which you get to once you understand the science. I think you can render that. You can decide how we decide with the science, but you may not be able to make a decision, and you probably shouldn't ever make a fucking decision about some of those things, because these are moral acts, basically. So deriving an ought from an is sort of thing. But anyway, so my view of science, I mean, I'm not going to use science to walk across a room. Okay. And this is why I keep bringing up with Danny, Mary's Room, right? Mary's Room is a thought experiment where by Jackson, where a philosopher of the mind, where Mary is raised in a black and white room where she never sees color. And she's a scientist. She's a brilliant neuroscientist. And she lives all of her life studying neuroscience of color. and vision. And she knows everything there is to know about how you see the color red and what happens when you see the color red. She knows all the science facts. So then one day they let Mary out of the room, and she sees a bright red apple. And so the first time she sees red, okay, and so has Mary gained knowledge, basically? And if she has, Jackson will say, well, that is the immaterial aspect of mind or whatever. It's sort of it's an argument against physicalism of the mind, that we can know all the facts about it, but then walk out, right? So, so there is more, even though you know all of the scientific facts about something, in principle, you can learn everything there is to know about the organism Mary when she walks out of the room and sees the color red. And Mary knows all these facts, and we could actually write these facts in a. I think I had this table up here at some point. Yeah, this thing, basically this thing on the left where you could write all these science facts about something, and yet you still would not know what it is to see the colors red, right? So I don't even think that argument works. Okay, no, the argument doesn't work because. For a lot of reasons. Mary's room doesn't work for a lot of reasons. Because number one, Mary is the organism that she is studying. And that divides it into two things, right? So if I am studying my mind while I'm eating a banana, my study of the mind is never going to be the same as my eating the banana because I am the organism eating the banana. So when you do scientific facts, you necessarily step out of the frame of what you are into an outer frame where you're looking at facts, right? And that's what I call the God's eye view. That basically you step out. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Or have I lost you?
I understand what you're saying.
Okay. So
I think Danny at some point in this broadcast needs to come in here and rather than rail about how it's not even an argument, it doesn't work, is listen and restate what you're saying and point out where an argument could be constructed or how. I'm thinking Danny might be more useful instead of reacting to things to help construct something. Well, I understand, Danny. Okay, I'm just trying to see a way where this might be a more helpful thing.
Well, he says that's not why it doesn't work. So he disagrees with me, and I asked him why. And he says he's at work, and then he just says it begs the question. And of course, it's question begging, but why is it question begging? How is it structured?
Maybe at some other time we'll be able to get something constructive out of all this.
I actually have a book called Mary's Room. I forget who wrote it, but they wrote it based on.
If Mary's kept in a dark room all her life, she'll see red and just drool. I don't know that she'll be capable of
right. Yeah. Yet it is a false belief because one which itself is not provable by science. Oh, that's Stephanie. Okay.
I found an article from the American Academy for the Advancement of Science where it has a section where it describes scientism of today. If you decide you want to take the time to do that, we can maybe look at that. It's like maybe 5 or 6 paragraphs.
Okay, so Danny says I'm wrong about Mary's room, and then he goes ahead and he says exactly what I said. The idea is that if she knows all the physical facts about red, the physicalist will think that she knows what it's like to see red before even seeing it. No physicalist would hold to that. That is a straw man version of physicalism. Because, and what I said about it, that you know all the facts, basically. You are stepping outside of frame, and you're looking at the organism, and you know the facts about the organism. That doesn't mean that you are the organism seeing red. And that's why Danny's room fails. And that's exactly what the fuck I said, except Danny somehow turns this into a straw man against physicalism. The physicalist will think that he knows what it's like to see red. Not true, Danny. No physicalist who actually knows his shit is going to claim that. Oh my God. Anyway, because being the thing that is, doing the experiencing, this first person thing that we are, basically is not going to be the same as going out and knowing all the physical facts about it. In fact, you can do both at the same time. I could be looking at myself in a CAT scan, thinking about looking at myself in a CAT scan. And I'm going to get two different sides of that story by doing so, right? Because we're stepping out of frame. And that is one of the mistakes that's made about the mind a lot when we're studying the mind. Like a lot of theists and believers will say, when they're trying to prove the soul, they'll say something like, oh, neurons can't be true or false. Like what the fuck's his name? That bozo that debated Tom Jump. I'll think of his name. Oh, Eric Hernandez. Yeah.
There's a lot of people that's debated T Jump.
Yeah, Eric Hernandez.
I think I saw him and Aaron Ra in a debate.
How am I misinforming my viewers, you little fucking weenie? It's exactly what I said. Anyway. Oh my God. He is a little weenie. Yeah, I Hernandez debated Aaron Ra. I can't remember how that one turned out. Probably not very good, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I don't remember. I was doing stuff while it was playing.
Yeah. Anyway, so what I wanted to say about belief and knowledge is that Leo had that definition, and he was correct about that definition, and I was pushing back on it because I wanted to reinterpret knowledge as more like a belief, right? A disposition. I do not want to call knowledge a belief because it seems to me that belief should be used for a more rational version of knowledge. You wouldn't call knowledge of how to ride a bike belief, would you?
No.
So
no. Even if you believe that gravity will help keep you balanced or whatever, or your response to gravity will help keep you balanced, that it's almost background knowledge. Well, I'm using knowledge.
Doesn't even help you balance, is it? Right.
So what gravity? Well, yeah, it's all a dance. It's all there's an interaction between gravity and your sense of balance that allow you to ride a bike.
Yeah.
You know it's going to do that, but is it a belief? I guess you could say, I believe the bicycle, I believe I can ride a bicycle. But you really know. It seems to be you have you're justified in saying you know. So I don't know. Like I said, I've not done a whole lot of meaningful reading on epistemology.
Okay, answers in atheism. You did not give the response that the physicalists give to Mary's room. They never mentioned stepping outside of frameworks. Well, now now they do because I'm a physicalist and I just mentioned it. That explains the problem. But you don't seem to understand that. But Danny's not very good at understanding any idea that doesn't fit into his bullshit framework. And I didn't use any mumbo jumbo. I think I explained that rather well. Basically, that I am the organism, right? That I'm studying. So I know I'm an organism, and I step out, basically, and I try to write science facts about being an organism. So these are the science facts, right? But at the same time, these are actually inside my mind. But we have to bracket that. We have to forego that, and we have to understand what we're doing with science. With science, we're making these big lists of facts, and descriptions of how things work. So this is, descriptive, that sort of thing. But we are always the thing that's feeling. So if I CAT scan myself, thinking about CAT scanning myself, we end up with a Vindaloop. And we have to break out of that Vindaloop. Basically. Anyway, framework, Danny, is, okay, this is one frame is going to be when you are the thing experiencing the color red. So I am the thing experiencing the color red. Okay, so maybe I know now. Jesus Christ, what are you doing to me? Okay, so this is one frame, first person experience. So it's the first person frame. What we attempt to do with science is we come out here and we tend to try to get a God's eye view of ourselves, of what we are, right? And so this becomes the greater frame. So this is the scientism frame out here. So this is where I employ my scientism, right? I will claim that I could write a list of facts in principle of everything that's happening inside that organism. Okay, of course, in practice, I could never write every single fact because as I was writing the facts, I would be generating more facts, right? So you can see the problem.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's see. Well, I kind of like dealing with Danny in chat better than I do in person. You reject the distinction between first and third person. No, I don't. No, I'm actually telling you that third person point of view is God's eye view, the stepping away from the framework. Okay. I reject the dichotomy between objective and subjective, but that's another subject. So yes, I'm affirming that this is a Frankenjism way of doing it. We try to get a God's eye view of what we are and how we work. Yes, I will affirm that. Third person point of view. So this would be the third person. Okay. But I still reject the subjective objective dichotomy. Anyway, what else? So anyway, and so we started out talking with Immutable about this one category fallacy, as he called it. Basically, if everything is one category, then he said that it doesn't mean anything. And I've heard Danny say the same thing about naturalism. You know, that's one category. So
what are the proposed categories? Or you just have a innumerable number of them?
We have an innumerable number, unfortunately. So let's see, org, where the hell, where did I draw? Oh, I erased my little line. What the fuck? Why did I lose everything just now? Oh, I see. Let me get a new page. Okay. So basically I was talking about knowledge, or my idea of what knowledge is. So knowledge, and Leo wants to call that belief, basically, because he believes in, he doesn't want to call it knowledge unless it's JTB. So we have to understand that I have a different definition of knowledge than Leo does. Okay. So we have like all of this knowledge that basically the how-to knowledge, like how to walk and how space works and all of that stuff, right? And then we have, science knowledge way up on top here. And then in between, we have this common sense knowledge about how the world works. And somewhere in this spectrum here, we take language, basically, and, we have a linguistic form of these beliefs. That means that we can put them into language. So we can take language, this language operator, and take these beliefs, and we can spit out a statement, right, about what we believe. So, but we can't do that about how to ride a bike or how to walk across a room. Okay. But in principle, my scientism says that we could go down here and explain all of these things with the language of science. So we would have I don't know how to make a stylized S. So we'd have a science language, right? So this is the science language, and we could explain all of those beliefs. And that's what I mean by scientism. So I think that
it's an explanatory. It's a way of explaining the world as we know it.
Yeah, I can explain common sense knowledge to you. Like, okay, I know that basically Cadillac makes a 305 engine, right? So that's like common sense intermediate knowledge that I can put into language.
Yeah.
Now I can specify
knowledge.
But I couldn't tell you how to ride a bike. And I couldn't tell you how you recognize other minds and, theory of mind. We have theory of mind and all of that stuff down here. So this is that complex of neuroscientific knowledge that every human being builds up in their childhood.
You can only tell somebody how, like I can only tell you how I ride a bike. And we have to make the supposition that your experience of the world is similar enough to my experience of the world, that what I tell you might be useful to help you gain that knowledge.
Right. So if you told me how to ride a bike, you were telling me verbally how to ride a bike, you'd be making all these statements right here, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying that those statements could not possibly get me to tip a bike up and go ride it. Okay, there's something missing, and that's the Mary's room missing thing. That is the actual experience of your body actually doing these things. That's the knowledge of your body, the knowledge that beats your heart and breathes your lungs and or breathes your air. And those things are impossible to put into basically statements about how to do it. Okay, but I'm claiming with scientism that in principle, we could basically write a really long list about how people ride bikes and learn everything there is to know about how people ride bikes
Mm-hmm.
and explain it with science. And we'd have volumes and volumes and volumes of bike riding neuroscience, right?
Yeah,
That's
sort of like how I'm reading these books on how to learn math and science more effectively. You get all sorts of opinions and ideas, but it all boils down to you going through it and doing it yourself. So that's kind of like personal knowledge.
Okay, Danny finally figured it out that I'm using a proprietary notion of scientism. And I guess there is like I say, there is a straw man version of scientism that nobody holds.
Well, apparently you can go to Wikipedia and register your scientism. And,
Really?
yeah, I think so. Because I asked him where you go to register all that. And he said, at CP, Wiki, a textbook anywhere. Oh, so you have to write your own textbook.
Let's see.
Well, Danny, that may be true, but he's trying to explain how he sees the world. And so if he sees himself as scientism adjusted or added to in some way, then that's fine. Is it really that far divorced from scientism?
Well, it's interesting that Danny finally figured out that I'm just making shit up.
Yeah, is it a scientism? In other words, let's think of an abstract object, like a bicycle. A bicycle is a frame and two wheels with something to hold on to that you balance. Well, somebody can take that and really expand on the frame or really do something fancy with the frame. You still have a bicycle, but it is a proprietary. So Danny, are you saying it's nothing like scientism?
Okay, so Danny is saying I'm making shit up. Yes, Danny. Okay, he said I have a proprietary view. Yes, I do. I have yes, Danny, I am making shit up. That's why I have a YouTube channel. Okay, I make shit up all the time. I make shit up every morning when I wake up, I think. Okay. And then he says, well, that's why I told you to stop misinforming your viewers, which very much confuses me. What in the fuck is he talking about?
I don't know.
Jesus Christ, misinforming your viewers. Anyway, so there's this whole thing about the mind and what we do with language, and all of this stuff up here tends to be in this rational area, this rational area of the mind. And down here tends to be our biological origins, right? And when I was talking about spiritualism is down here in this biological organism. And the antithesis of spiritualism is up here where we specify everything and where we have to basically pick out and turn into language or turn into arguments or turn into Frankengisms. All of these things about life. And there's a use for that. There's a use for rationality and there's a use for linguistic rendering of all of these facts. And that's fine, but you don't want to live that way all the time because it will make you very sad. Mm-hmm. So anyway, that's spiritualism. But anyway, this part over here, now this is a science language, where we go down and we actually look at everything, every physical fact and reality of what's going on in the world and in the organism. And that's the part where I will say that we can learn everything there is to know about this whole ball of wax with science in principle. In practice, no fucking way. You don't want to ever, okay, this idea of, you got the idea that it's survival of the fittest. So now we realize that we have to modify the human genome so that we are more fitter, right? Okay.
Mhm.
That would be a misapplication of the whole fucking ball of wax, because there are so many things about that particular proposition that we can't know. And one of the big main ones is that it's fucking immoral. And if it's immoral, that means that this little piece down here, this little how-to knowledge that you have, your morality, your organismal morality is going to feel really bad if we start killing people because they don't fit our view of the fittest, right? So that would be like I say, that's the straw man version of scientism that I hope nobody holds. I would like to find somebody who does hold to those views. It'd be interesting.
Yeah.
To these weird events to
So
support
Danny, I wonder, would you rather? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to overtalk you.
Danny wants a Frankenjism, so he wants me to
Yeah,
make a Frankenjism.
I'm thinking Danny wants you to drill down to properly basic first principles, and maybe I'll just say down to properly basic ideas and build scientism up from that.
Oh, let's see, Nathan Art, do you understand his view? Do you understand where I'm coming from, Scott?
Yeah, kind of. I don't know how I would put it into a philosophical statement, but I know how you feel about the role of science in obtaining knowledge.
What would you push back on, or what would you pick on?
Gosh, I don't know. I think, and I don't know where this fits in, but I think Danny does have a point about subjective, objective, and first person, third person. Because one of them is subjective and objective are points of view, and then first person, third person is how language expresses those points of view. And so there is a distinction. When you don't have a first person and third person, you're talking about a newborn infant, at that stage in his life where he or she does not differentiate between themselves and their mother or the world around them. It's all one big blur. Even their vision, isn't able to distinct. I'm going to use a weird word, distinctify, make distinct perceptions of objects and things around the room. I don't even know how much they can view the mother's face. So the subjective, objective, first person, third person distinction, I think, is real.
Okay. Yeah, there's something real about it, but that's a whole different discussion. My view on the distinction between the subjective objective dichotomy, basically. Yeah. I guess I can say just one thing about it.
You're trying to go into an objective point of view by stepping out and making the observations of what the organism is doing.
There is really
incorporating it in your work.
Okay, there is really no such thing as a subjective view of things or a first person experience, and there is no such thing as consciousness, and that's eliminativism, and that is a whole different discussion. A different. It kind of relates because, but I'm not ready to talk about that yet. So
okay.
Anyway, but I will accept that. Yeah, it is a good idea. I mean, we can sit up here and we can make this distinction about the things that you talked about, and those distinctions seem to matter. They do matter. Like when I talked about Mary's room, I use the first person, third person distinction to talk about it, and so yeah, we can use it. But I mean, if we're talking about what's real, there is no first person point of view, really. We make that up in our heads. And we make it up by understanding the third person point of view. Anyway, we've gone too far into that, and I'm not ready for that yet. So anyway. And oh my God. Okay, what did you see? Oh, he contradicted himself. Yeah, it seems like a contradiction when you don't understand it, Danny. Okay. Anyway, see what else about the video that I caught up. Oh yeah, I was trying to make this. We were talking about this. Basically, Immutable was saying that if I'm saying that all things are basically what the hell did I say? All things, all knowledge. Oh, it's a continuum. I was trying to tell him that it was a continuum. That
Mm-hmm.
these lines are fuzzy here between these things, right? That
Squishy knowledge,
squishy knowledge. That you can't really make a division. And he was saying, well, if you're going to call it all this one thing, then it's not a thing. It doesn't make any sense. The one category fallacy, I think he called it. And I've said, no, it's one category, but I mean, yeah, it's all one thing, all one kind of knowledge. It's all in your brain. It's all physical. That doesn't mean that we can't make categories in between, because I just did it, for Christ's sake. I just divided it into 3 categories because there's a difference as you go along this line, that sort of thing. I'm just saying that that you can't, that you're going to find gray areas. And that's the problem with epistemology, is they had all these goddamn gray areas, that they had to fight over. And as soon as you said one clear thing, as soon as you come up with a really good Frankengism about, knowledge as justified true belief, somebody would come along these borders and they would find a little pushback because they'd find a gray area. And I'm saying, if you just fucking understand what the brain is, for Christ's sake, if you use scientism to understand the brain, there are no problems in epistemology at all. They all wash out. They all disappear. And that's why I'm a scientist. That's why I adhere to scientism. I am a scientist in that respect. So
yeah, it's how do you, what's the word for a person who adheres to scientism? A scientismist?
Yeah, I like scientist. I don't know, but what do they call a scientismist?
I don't know. That was my question: is what do you call somebody who adheres to scientism?
I don't know. That sounds like Frankengism to me. I don't know. Anyway, it's word salad to you, Danny, because you don't fucking get it, because you're a believer. You're still a believer. You haven't gotten out of your Christian belief entirely. You haven't shed that last element, that what the fuck is it? That dualism. When you shed the dualism, you will begin to understand what I'm talking about.
Well, anyway. and also, really, as a non-philosopher, I know you've studied philosophy and all that, but your whole description of your worldview, that takes time to finesse, to refine. And so there may be problems in expression that I haven't picked up on, or things I should have known to disagree with, but didn't, because I don't know the subject matter very well. So it's all a work in progress. And what we need to do is, since you have somebody who is energetically, I guess I'll say opposed, although I don't really mean it in that necessarily in that negative way. It would be good for Danny, I think, to come in and, without judgment statements, say what he hears you saying, and from there see if there's any way you can put together an argument.
Yeah, the argument is,
maybe he could go onto his channel and do that. That way he's not there. There's not that interpersonal interaction that seems to get heated sometimes, and he can calmly say, "This is what Speed has said. This is what I think he's saying, and it's not an argument, and here's why." And if he wants to make an argument, and then maybe Danny can pull some things out of what you've said. I don't know. It just seems like something more positive and constructive can be done in this relationship between you and Danny.
Icarus just put his foot in it. Danny, yeah, he thinks it's what the words actually mean. What the fuck does that mean? What the fuck does that mean?
You're applying to scientism and knowledge. He's thinking you have a a unique view on it. And let's say if you went to a Stanford dictionary, nobody else in there would use the words the same way you would to describe the same thing.
Yeah, but that means exactly the opposite of what Icarus said. That means I don't think that that's what the words actually mean. Okay. Okay. He's talking about Randolph. Okay. He's talking about atheism and anti-theism and all that bullshit, or agnosticism and
Randolph. Which one's Randolph?
Randolph Richardson. He comes on. He comes on.
I was thinking about that guy who sent us that book review on the Creationism USA for something. That was Rudolph. No,
okay. Yeah. Yep. So, by the way, Bruce Damer did get back to me, and he has been apparently he watched our last Paper Trails thing, and he liked what we did. So,
well, that is very cool.
He said he appreciated the fact that we actually drilled down into it and tried our best, and he offered to answer any questions we have. So,
yeah, that would be great. Do you think he's going to come on the stream, or will he answer questions in writing? Or
he will come on the stream eventually. Yeah, we will get him.
That is very cool. Yeah, he seems like a nice guy.
Yeah. But anyway, so the justification for naturalism is something that I would like to do in this same format. What the fuck? I can't write tonight. I'm burning out. Had too much coffee and been up too long. Okay, the justification for naturalism is something that I like to talk about, and it's not going to be a Frankenjism. There's not going to be an argument, because you can't make a syllogistic argument about this, right? So, like a justification, like what we're trying to do is we are this organism, and we're trying to figure out what the fuck we are, right? Trying to figure out what we are.
What are we?
And we're also trying to figure out what the fuck this is. So we're trying to figure out what we are. So first of all, we try to figure out what the universe is, and we try to figure out what we are. And in that process, you can justify naturalism. And it's kind of sticky, and I'm not up to it right now, but I would like to use that. So anyway, yes, I do admit that, Danny, that, I don't use words the same as anyone else. It's because I believe what I am doing is actually philosophy, and it's not philosophy that I read out of a fucking book or found against some standard. It's stuff that I've thought about myself for many, many years. And now I'm just starting to try to put it into a form that other people can understand it. And I'm also trying to test it against what other people might think about it, because I'm afraid I might be wrong, right? And I want to find out how I'm wrong. So anyway, basically the whole justification for naturalism starts out with this. I am a 70-year-old human being. And I'm trying to figure out what the fuck I am, and how would I go about doing that, and what tools would I use, and what would I appeal to. And I think what philosophers always miss is that you used to be a zygote, right? And there was a journey from zygote to 70-year-old, right? And I think like when philosophers argue about solipsism and weird shit and certainty and truth and reality, they miss out on that whole aspect of them having been a 3-year-old at one point trying to negotiate the world. And I like to bring and I call that the developmental argument, basically. So there's a developmental form of these arguments that everybody fucking seems to miss.
Hey, I got to go in a couple minutes. My boss wants to chat with me.
Okay, I got to go too, so we're going to end the stream. So,
all right. Well, thank you everybody for coming along and making a contribution in the chat.
Yep,
we appreciate it.
Thanks everybody except Danny.
I would just like to see y'all come. I think y'all could do some constructive work together, but I don't know why it's become so contentious. Yeah,
because Danny's a weenie.
Okay. Well, that's your point of view, and I think we know Danny's point of view.
That's not just my first person point of view. That is the third person point of view.
The third one as well.
It's the objective point of view. Danny actually is a weenie.
And 3 and 1 equal 4. So
okay.
Fourth person, I
Goodbye,
guess.
Scott. Thank you, Scott.
All right. I'm Bible. I will talk to y'all later.
Okay. Bye, cruel world.
Bye.